Partnered by Times Influence.
The Brand Vision Summit 2017-2018 witnessed a convergence of bigwigs from India Inc. on a grand platform. An exclusive panel discussion on cultivating a culture of innovation saw the participation of Tapan Singhal, Managing Director and CEO, Bajaj Allianz; Sanjay Mehta, Managing Director, Teleperformance; Gaurav Jain, Managing Director, Coldex Logistics; Vishal Gupta, CEO, Search Trade; and Nikhil Arora, Vice President and Managing Director, GoDaddy.
Hello and welcome to Brand Vision Summit 2017-2018. Today's business climate is as vibrant as it is volatile, and entrepreneurs often struggle with striking a balance between the decisions that fuel short-term growth versus those that empower long-term success. Irrespective of industry, innovation often occurs in isolation, in silos far removed from the primary function, product, or service of a company. And here at the Brand Vision Summit, we thought we'd take the opportunity to explore how innovation can gravitate from the periphery to front and center of the company's mind, spirit, and action. Essentially, how does the company cultivate a culture of innovation? And fortunately, I'm joined by an esteemed panel to help me do just that. Now, innovation and technology are two terms that are often intertwined. And my first question, and I pose this to the entire panel, is innovation limited to and limited by what technology can make happen?
Innovation has taken different shapes and forms and different meanings for different people. And I come from an industry that is in the outsourced customer experience management industry, and where we are prescribed to play by the rules. But of late, we have begun to play a leading role in innovating processes. The business has to have the ability to absorb risks or foster risk-taking. People in today's day and age, say 2018, are more well-informed. Transparency is the key to it. Because this innovation is not only about technology. Of late, it is repackaging of the same to make life easier. So it's going to be purpose-driven.
If I look at today's culture, and we call it culture innovation, it's all about being just obsessed about customer. It's about that obsession to find solutions which makes a huge difference.
I represent GoDaddy, where our vision is to radically shift the global economy towards small businesses. We want to have small businesses easily start, successfully run, and be successful in their venture. You asked an interesting question on, innovation technology. And I wanted to kind of just step back to say, how do we define innovation, right? And to me, the first principle of innovation is, are you a missionary or a mercenary? And the difference is, missionary people are people who get up every morning and trying to solve a problem, versus mercenary people are, how am I going to make more money? And I think there's an interesting study done where you can actually convert missionaries to mercenaries, but very unlikely you can convert mercenaries to missionaries. So I think the number one principle is, you have to be a missionary, and what grand problem are you solving? I say this quite a lot, I love to fall in my customer's problem, not my own solution. So if I'm continuously falling in love with my customer's problem and innovating for that, I think you'll see ultimately a transformational outcome.
Innovation is a very generic word which applies to various aspects of personal and business life. I mean, what we are seeing today is technology has become important, a driver of innovation. Why? Because everybody today is using a smartphone, and delivery of services using mobile applications is becoming a very lucrative opportunity for a lot of businesses. So, whatever solution you have created for your customers, internet or mobile delivery has become part of the mix for most businesses. So, I mean, that's where we see the trajectory right now. But innovation is not necessarily limited to technology, but I think in current context, it's playing a very huge role.
And Gaurav, what Vishal seems to be saying is innovation can be local, innovation can be global, innovation can be social, it can be mobile, right? So if we have to put that term inside a box, how do we define it ultimately?
So we come from a pretty grassroots background. So we run a logistics company to start with. Started from a small town. But the fact of the matter is, for us, it's been reading the sensibility of a customer to be delivering the product that he would need. We would be very functional in our approach to be, dealing with the customer problem, solving it one after the other. And by the end of it, I think a complex solution which we look from outside is very simple from inside. So that's how we look at innovation. That's how our journey has been.
India is oftentimes, criticized for being better at imitation than innovation. And, my next question to the panel, and we'd love to start with you, Tapan, is that a fair statement? And if so, how do we march forward?
So if we look at the Indian market for insurance, it has a combined ratio of 117%, which typically means for every 100 rupees the insurance industry receives, the outgo is 117 in terms of claims, commission, and expenses. But you talk to a common person on the street, what does he feel about insurance companies? He will say, these guys don't pay claims. It's a general perception. Just talk to anybody. So it's ironical. The industry is bleeding to death, and the common person feels that the industry does not pay claims. Now, that was the problem statement. Yeah? And so we're thinking about how do you solve this? Then I realized that if you look at the insurance industry, it was created way back, about 500, 600 years back, in which money was taken from many to pay to few, but in paying to few, they would actually check there's no frauds. Now, in today's time with technology coming in, the statement which we had to solve was that can we pay claims even before the customer realizes he has a claim? It's for automobile. If you have an accident, you actually get down, click pictures, upload, within 20 minutes you transfer money to your account.
Gaurav, do you agree with that? Do you agree that, essentially, it's not the highlight of conversations, but we are innovating just as quickly as our global counterparts? Or, for example, do you feel that many of the insurance initiatives that Tapan highlighted are being executed just as well abroad?
I think this is a solution that we provide. Necessarily for the market that we cater. And the need of the market is very different elsewhere in the world, And trying to evolve the mind around, does technology play a part, does sensibility play a part, is the culture which that you push out throughout the years have to happen. So we had a GST coming in now where everybody thinks that there's no incentive to be having many places to be storing, distributing and our minister would come in and say that the logistics supply chain spend should come down by 20%, and nobody has a clue what's being talked about. Who's stopping, who's not stopping, is the transit time improved? Nothing. The fact of the matter is that the entire set of inventory which runs in the system is the material which moves out, the throughput increases. And that essentially is so local to the fact that if the customers were to give it out to a unique single player to be dealing with the entire thing and not be cutting into many pieces of the supply chain, that you enable such changes to happen.
Nikhil, I think what Gaurav seems to be saying is that customer demographics really dictate how innovation is delivered. And given your association with GoDaddy, and given how the marketing strategies vary so drastically in the United States, for example, versus here in the Indian market, where you've made significant inroads, how would you respond to that statement?
I think if you look back maybe 5-6 years ago, perhaps it was more skewed towards imitation. I think the current secular shifts demographically, geographically, technologically are definitely helping us move towards more of a paperless economy, which hence is driving a lot of innovation. So I think certainly we are moving in the right direction. I think we are more skewed towards now innovating rather than imitating, but where this ecosystem needs help is more and more visibility of these stories, right? I think we talk more on the south side of the stories versus the north side of the stories.
Innovation has no boundaries it comes in different forms and shapes, and when applied to people, they multiply that effect. And today, that resulted in such empowerment that misuse, which prevents us from getting into these kind of developments or trust between the junior most and senior most people or mid-level, wherever. I don't think that it's not happening in India. I think it's happening in large numbers. And we're just beginning to exploit it. And it is going to become very big.
Well, Vishal, Sanjay here just brought up a very human side of innovation. And as we think about how to innovate, when to innovate, where to innovate, I have to pose the question, are we overthinking this? And how much of innovation is, quite frankly, accidental?
I mean, there's an old saying, right? Necessity is mother of all inventions. So, I mean, when we say we are overthinking this, I mean, essentially we are coming to a point, is there a need for innovation? So I guess whenever there is a demand in society, in the marketplace for a product or a service or a solution, people are going to apply mind. Now, you know, in a country like India, where, you know, we are still working on social infrastructure and, you know, food, clothing, water, shelter, electricity, telecom, you know, basic requirements still have to go to the last mile, and you're still struggling with them. You know, the innovations that we require are probably smaller in nature because, you know, society is positioned in a certain way. So, you know, looking at the West and looking at all the big ticket innovations in their context and understanding our context are two very different propositions. And I guess we need to look at that side of things as well.
Well, with that, I think we walk away with some fascinating takeaways on how to cultivate a culture of innovation within the company. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing so many personal and professional anecdotes from the rich lives that you've lived, from the leadership positions you're in. And I thank you for being a lovely audience. Thank you.
On the other side, an engaging discussion on navigating sustainability through changing waters. The Brand Vision Summit brought together thought leaders from various industries on a single platform to gauge how sustainability of a business can be navigated through changing waters. Joining the esteemed panel were Saurabh Dhanorkar, Managing Director, Finilex Industries; Gunjan Srivastava, Managing Director and CEO, Bosch & Siemens; and Sunil Agarwal, Director, Kamdhenu.
Today's business climate is as vibrant as it is volatile. And entrepreneurs often struggle with striking a balance between when to make those decisions that fuel short-term growth versus those that empower long-term success. So given that we're at the Brand Vision Summit, we thought we'd take the opportunity to explore exactly how a sustainable business is built in this corporate climate. Unfortunately, I'm joined by a panel of experts to help me do just that. The first question that I'd like to pose to the panel is, in your quest to build a sustainable brand and a sustainable business, what are the most major roadblocks that you've encountered?
When I talk about the brand Finolex, we are a 60-year-old brand. We started in 1958, so it's been a long journey. There have been ups and downs, but I think we have always believed that what really sustains the brand in the long run is quality and ethics. You can build a brand in the short run by doing heavy advertisement, but at the end of the day, unless you give a good product at a fair price and unless you are good to the customer, you won't sustain in the long run.
Brand doesn't exist in a vacuum. It starts from your business objectives. What is it basically which you want to achieve? And then the brand becomes an integral part of the strategy. Okay? When we look at brands Bosch and Siemens in India, then we realize that out of 100 people randomly selected, not more than 1 or 2 know about Bosch or Siemens, at least at a spontaneous level. So for us, the most important measure of the brand value or where the brand stands in the consumer's mind is about a spontaneous recall, unaided, of which brands the person is able to recall when confronted with a particular category, say home appliances. How you start working on the purchase cycle is by knowing from the consumer that what are the stimulus or what are the things or triggers which really take the person from awareness to a consideration to then maybe a final purchase. And once you know these stimuli, then you start working on them.
As everybody knows, Kamdhenu, it is a brand in steel. When we came into the steel industry, it was just hazard, no branding, no networking, anything. So we created Dream just to give a good quality to our customer at a very reasonable price. We start branding, we start networking to our consumers, to our dealers, our network. Brand means a assurance in quality and a reasonable price, a very good availability everywhere. We started with a very low capital, but a very big brand. Brand means availability everywhere, good quality, good price, and a well awareness and a service also. If a person required material just now, we have a system to deliver immediate everywhere, all over India.
Now, I'd like to build on the point that Sunil made. And, Saurabh, I'd love to bring you in here. There's, of course, a huge difference between the strength of a brand and the sustainability of a business. How do you differentiate between the two?
As Gunjan said first, the business comes first. Unless you have a very strong business, and again, I would like to stress the quality and the ethical part of business, you can't build a brand. Just advertising is not branding. And especially for a country as diverse as India, and in the rural markets, it's a completely different way of branding used out there. In rural markets, what we have experienced, because we sell PVC pipes, and we were one of the first to introduce PVC pipes in India when pipes used to be metal, and we brought plastic, PVC, basically plastic pipes into India. And our target customer at that time was farmers. So selling pipes in rural India, convincing a farmer to put his hard-earned money into a plastic pipe was a completely different ballgame altogether. What we have seen in rural India is word of mouth still is the primary way of branding. You may show the best of advertisements on TV. Today TV has reached villages. You may have the biggest brand ambassadors, but finally a farmer will go by what his chacha or his neighbor or his mama has bought. And if he knows that this particular brand has done well, he will go by that irrespective of advertising. So that trust quality in a brand is built over a long period. You can't just build it overnight.
I'd like to talk more about that, Gunjan. Now, Kamdhenu and Finolex both seem to be brands that have enjoyed a first mover advantage. How closely does that tie to sustaining the business in the long run?
Bosch is a global brand. It stands for something. Okay, it stands for invented for life. Okay, and life here is not about lasting lifelong, which is also a part of it. But more importantly, how does it make a difference to every consumer's life? When we are in India, we are not thinking that we are German or we are Chinese or Australian or whatever. We want to understand the Indian consumer first. We know that we are not the first or the second or the third, but we are probably one of the last brands to enter this space. It's easy to make a promise. I'm invented for life. I have German engineering. I have good quality, best durability. But then what happens? When we are selling a product, the first moment of truth is when the customer walks into the store and buys the product or experiences the product there at the shop level. How does my product sort of reflect itself? The person who's trying to sell the product, does that person also reflect the same Bosch values as the product is supposed to reflect? So if you're able to learn, implement, correct, and then take that into account and further keep that cycle going, keeping the consumer in the center, then I think you will be able to always remain ahead of the game and be sustainable.
As you look at your own individual growth stories and the stories of your company, what has played the most pivotal role? Has it been financial capital, intellectual capital, or human capital?
Short answer is human capital, okay, from my perspective. Because if you have a great idea, great concept, okay, you will find the financial capital to support. Someone will be there, okay. However, in order to generate that particular concept or idea, you need that human capital who would be able to put that together or synthesize it together. I mean, when you're working from inception or start, right? I mean, you are faced with n number of scenarios, possibilities, information, and from there you have to figure out what is that one crisp proposition which is going to appeal to the consumer or the customer which I'm after. And that is where the crux lies.
We believe that to be successful in a country like India, where you have so much diversity, you have to invest in three things. First of all, you have to invest in the plant. You have to have the best of equipment. Unless you have that, you can't produce a quality product. Two, you have to invest in manpower, obviously. So we have, as a group, more than 2,000 employees. And we continuously keep on training them, upgrading them. And training means right from classroom or the shop floor training to we send people to IIMs and there's the senior management. We send for long courses. We send them abroad for training. And the third thing which you have to continuously invest in is the distribution network. Because you may have the best of the product, but if it's not available in the market, what's the use? We have 18,000 outlets today, and we still feel we are highly inadequate. We have to keep investing in all these three, capital equipment, manpower, and distribution.
Manpower, I think it is the most intellectual assets for the company. All over India, we have a franchisee network. We upgrade the plants. Existing units, we just take over the existing unit everywhere all over India. We upgrade them, make them to sell a good quality in Kamdhenu network. So intellectual property for we, what I like most, it is the manpower or a human power. Team can do anything. Money can't do anything. It can do something, but a good team, it can win all the matches. And if we don't have the good team, we can't do anything.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a fascinating discussion where you've really helped us do a deeper dive on how brands and businesses are so closely intertwined and yet entirely different entities. So a huge round of applause for sharing so many personal and professional anecdotes from your journey. Thank you.
In the next episode, the Brand Vision Summit continues with another riveting panel discussion on embracing failures in business and moving forward, and an exclusive fireside chat on the role of leadership in creating a global brand.